And then a thing that I did when I got down to YMT and got my first job was, at the time we had tapes. So I pulled tapes off the shelf because I hadn't shot a lot of high school football or basketball games. So I pulled a tape off the shelf from the year before, popped it in, looked at how they shot their highlights because they were really good and they had been in longer than me. And so I was seeing, all right, how does it look in this box, in this frame? And even though I may not have started that way, that was what I was attaining to get to and able to do today from just watching and learning.
Welcome to the Next Level Journalist, where you will hear from some of the best journalists in the business or who have been there, done that, and willing to share with you what they've learned so you can get better, faster. Today's guest has more than 2 decades of TV experience. He is the sports director at WLEX-TV. He's also recently named Kentucky Sportscaster of the Year. Keith Farmer, thank you so much for making time for this today.
I don't like hearing that 2 decades thing. That's just too long.
You know what? A lot of people I talk to say that, like, man, it makes me feel old. But at the same time, it's because of that experience that I wanted you on here. I know that I've done a few dozen of these. No, not even 2 dozen, almost 2 dozen of these. But truth be told, your name, and I've got a list to prove it. I wrote this list a long time ago. You are in the top 10. So I'm not going to show all the names, but I promise you, you're in the top 10. So just a matter of time before I got to the Sportscaster of the Year. So Keith, let's go down memory lane. Take us through your career journey. When you were first interested in becoming what you are today, and just bring us up to date with what you're doing.
So when I was in high school, I grew up in Richmond, Kentucky, and our church started putting its services on TV, and it was interesting to sit back and I somehow my name came up, and I hey, you want to run a camera and that kind of thing. So I thought that was interesting, and it was neat to see the back workings of this, how they were planning it, and how it was all coming together. So then just on Sundays, I would run cameras for it. Sometimes I would go in on Saturdays if they had a wedding and things like that, and we'd shoot those. And so it just got me thinking, yeah, this is kind of a cool little thing. And then I was like, ESPN had just started, and I was thinking, man, I could really kind of do this thing probably. And growing up in Richmond, I was like, always flipping the stations and watching the different newscasts, and even watched the nightly news kind of shows nationally. So I guess I kind of thought, I love sports and I'm loving what I'm seeing out of this TV kind of thing. What can I do there? So lucky for me, I think I knew that that's what kind of career I wanted. I just didn't know what I wanted to do. I just thought maybe behind the scenes, like I'd been doing, shooting camera. So that helped me in picking out a college. So I went to Morehead State, and it was very hands-on. It was one of the top programs in the state at the time, probably still is up there, among Western and Asbury of all places, to go to school for that. Then I started kind of getting to do some hands-on stuff with more so with radio. And I remember doing, some writing and stuff for the sports director, and he was really teaching me a lot. And then he said, all right, on Friday, you're going to go on the air. And I was like, oh, okay. So I can still remember that first sportscast, and I so wish I had it on audio, because the person on the other side of the glass said like this, and that was my cue to talk. And I probably paused for what felt like 30 seconds. It was probably a couple. And my voice was, in sports today, it was, you could just hear it quivering, because I knew that that's what was going out over the air. Still, it didn't deter me. I was kind of still into it. And we had TV on campus, and I thought, well, it's, kind of like radio on front of a camera. So I did that. And that's what really got me the bug. And I decided, okay, I want to be in front of the camera. So out of school, I decided I got to find that first job, and went down to Hazard. I had family in Hazard, and thought WYMT, that's a great place to start. And so luckily enough, got a job there. Worked there for about 4.5 years, and it was mainly covering high school and covering UK athletics. Made the move maybe a little too soon to come to LEX-18 the first time, and it was kind of maybe promised more than I really ended up being able to do in sports. So by the time I got to the end of my first tenure here, I was a full-time news photographer, which is not what I wanted to do at all. and I yet still had done enough, I guess, to put a reel together that got me a job in Louisville as the number 3 guy at WLKY, which is the CBS affiliate there. Spent 13 great years there, and we can go through some of the stuff later if you want, that I've done at each spot, but was just a phenomenal place to work, covering Kentucky, Indiana, Louisville, and just all the high schools, and a lot of great events like Ryder Cup, PGA tournaments that came through there, and Little League World Series, which was really cool. But then, as weekends are tough to work. I did 13 years of it, and I was looking for something sort of, that might come open, and happened to be right here at LEX-18, and worked out that they had a Monday through Friday job, and I was able to get here, and been here since 2013.
The perseverance is the first word that came to mind. Paying your dues along the way, patiently waiting for that opportunity. Now here you are, top dog at the station, in Lexington, the UK official station. So kudos to you. You certainly have paid your dues. So with all that said, when you look back on your experience and what you did, what advice, insight, tips, suggestions, thoughts can you pass along to aspiring journalists trying to do exactly what you're doing today?
There'd be several things. For one, as many internships as you can do, as much as you can learn from others that are already in the business. And we try to bring people in here to intern and or work for us on Friday nights shooting football. So it's as much as you can do just to soak it up and learn. And don't be afraid to go knocking on doors for internships, and trying to get in somewhere. You're going to learn certain things in the classroom that aren't going to make sense until you get out and you start doing it in the real world. And you're going, oh yeah, I remember learning that. That happened for me. So that's one thing. The other is the perseverance, like you mentioned. It's the long-term goal. It's been worth it, now, but I won't say it was always easy getting to this point. When I started in Hazard, granted it was 1993, different time. I started at $13,500 is what I was making. And luckily my grandparents lived in Hazard, so I was able to live with them and save a lot more money. It was like making 20. So that was good. But that wasn't easy, and it's not easy for somebody, especially if they don't have grandparents that live down there. And then to be told, you're not going to be able to do sports at this station, and to still give it one last shot and make it in Louisville. And then, I was the number 3 guy, the number 2 guy left. And honestly, I feel like there's always that moment that happens. I hear it from everybody's career. And for me, the number 1 guy was out at Churchill Downs for the Derby. And he had already done that morning, and he left to go home, and they had expected him to be there to do a noon shot. And he didn't realize, and he was like, I can't make it back down there in time. They were like, Keith, can you go? You got a suit? I had one hanging up there, put it on, went down to Churchill, did a live shot. And I honestly believe that's what helped me get the number 2 job and get the weekend job. So, it's just that perseverance, putting yourself in the right position, always being there. So when that moment comes, you're ready to capitalize. And, then it's, again, just keeping, that tunnel vision on the long-term goal, because now I couldn't have imagined that things would have worked out as they have here at LEX-18, because we're now the official station of UK. We've got a show that's on, and we're just, having things kind of, not really totally given to us, but we're getting a lot more than we got before. And to be a part of that program and to be a part of that show is just, it's just incredible.
That's great stuff, Keith. And if anybody was paying close enough attention to date Keith, he's almost on 3 decades of TV experience. So
Thanks.
not to make you feel any older there, Keith.
Yeah.
But when you look back, or when you look at where you are today, is there anything that you do in particular, or if it's a number of things that you do that has contributed to your success? And I know you just touched on some things that certainly contributed to your success, but maybe what makes you unique in helping you get to where you are today?
Right. I think it's being available to do more than just one thing. And that's this business almost anymore. You can't just be a reporter. Like in the old days, you could be a reporter and you'd have an audio guy and you'd have a video guy and you'd have somebody editing for you. Now we do it all. So what you've got to learn is you got to learn your deadlines, and you've got to learn how to manage your time, and you've got to learn how to be able to write, edit, be in front of the camera, use the camera to shoot, edit, produce, everything. I mean, it's just like one thing after another. And not only that, now you throw in what's happened in the last few years that's made it tougher on the older guys, and that's posting to the web, and keeping up with those stories and balancing. All right, we got to get that out now. So hold off on what you're doing on the TV side of things, and let's go to the web side of things and get that on. And so, it's just so much crammed into one day. But that's what makes sports people great. If one time I did try and get a pharmaceutical job, and I took a list with me that you can probably find if you just Google it online, of why it's great to hire a journalist, not just a sports person, but a journalist. And it's a list of, they're never going to take off. They're always going to work hard. They're always going to meet their deadlines. And because some people have one deadline. I've talked to some people that have gotten out of the business, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I had a week to edit this," and I'm like, "A week? I've got 2 hours to edit 5 things." So that's why, if you can get into this business and learn this business, maybe you fall in love with it, maybe you don't, but it's going to prepare you for that next chapter in your life, because you've got to be doing a lot of things in a short amount of time.
Yeah, that's no joke about doing a little bit of everything and how it prepares you to do anything. So I love the fact that you mentioned about you fall into that older guys having to learn the web and stuff like that, but you being willing to do the quote unquote grunt work. I mean, even though you've put in almost 30 years, you don't hesitate. And I know this because we've worked together. I guess we haven't mentioned that at this point, but I guess if people put two and two together, Keith and I crossed paths. And I worked with Keith at LEX-18. So, you were not ever afraid to do the grunt work. And that speaks to your character, and that speaks to your leadership too. Because, if there were someone that, were too good to pick up a camera or post to the web, that's not the ideal person to want to work with or for. So always enjoyed working with you, Keith. You always set a great example of just that. So how did you develop your skill set, you think? I mean, obviously, like you said, you've had to do a little bit of everything in this business, but was there anything that you did, or any practices, whether it be with a camera, with editing, with on air, any tips, advice that you can hand off?
Yeah, for sure. And this would be great for somebody that's just trying to think about or just getting into the business. So I can even go back as far as, college. And like I said, when I was working with that sports director, he at the time probably had 20, 30 years in the business. And so I was learning the way his writing style, and taking bits and pieces from that. Because I don't know that I was ever great in English. I mean, I was okay, but never did a lot of writing and that kind of thing. But you pick up little things from people there. When I thought about getting into the business, Greg Gorham, who was a guy that I interned with, him from a lot of people call him Punk. That was his nickname, and he will turn around when you call him that and say, "What's up?" I called him up, and he was already working at a TV station, and he took me out and showed me how to use a camera. So it's taking advantage of those people and asking, "Hey, can you show me this?" And then a thing that I did when I got down to YMT and got my first job was, at the time we had tapes. So I pulled tapes off the shelf because I hadn't shot a lot of high school football or basketball games. So I pulled a tape off the shelf from the year before, popped it in, looked at how they shot their highlights, because they were really good and they had been in longer than me. And so I was seeing, all right, how does it look in this box, in this frame? And even though I may not have started that way, that was what I was attaining to get to and able to do today, from just watching and learning. And then again, it's like that picture of Kobe with Michael Jordan from when he was a rookie, just picking his ear on, what about this? Why did you do that? How are you doing that? And so the people that are in the business, when you get into a newsroom, take advantage. There are people that have been in it for a long time, and be open to criticism or just correction, because there are times I've seen, news people turning in their stories, and the anchors are looking them over at night, and they're saying, "Why don't we say it this way?" And it's like, okay, yeah, I like that, and it's just being available to change. And, like you said, when the web comes along, being available to learn that as well, just whatever it may be. There's going to be something else, because trust me, This business in the time I've been in it has gone from no internet to me having to post on the internet, from tapes to no tapes and just using little, cards to shoot off of, to editing so much differently. So, and that's in a very short amount of time. I mean, things are going to change. And not only that, the pandemic showed us how we can do things at home. We have producers sitting at home that are producing shows, and they're not even coming in here. It's amazing.
Yeah, you just talked about the season that we're in, Keith. Tell us a little bit about what it's like for you right now, in this COVID-19 season that we're in, to cover sports, what your daily quote unquote routine looks like, even though I'm well aware, most people who see this, is that there's not a typical day. I mean, every day is a little bit different, but give us an idea of what your day and or week looks like.
Yeah, well, for one, I'll just say that, COVID changed things in the way that we normally would come in. We'd all be around each other. We would, grab a camera and go shoot a story somewhere with somebody, go shoot a practice somewhere, go to Kentucky's practices afterwards, interview them, go to games, interview them afterwards, sitting in chairs and things like that. So now, you go from a day where, for a typical sports person, you're coming in at about 2:00. But before that, you're probably waking up and you're looking over Twitter, seeing if there's anything going on. You're looking over some of the Facebook pages, Instagrams, whatever it may be, to see what might be going on out there that you might be talking about that afternoon, things that you may need to go to, checking emails and all that. And that's all at home. That never happened way back in the day. So now you're getting in at like 2:00. You've got a good sense of what you're putting into your shows. You're laying that out on the rundown. You're, getting maybe some Zoom interviews now, the way we do it. And that will be stuff that you'll put into your show. Very little that we're going out and shooting now, but the only thing is games. And to be honest, those have changed. So like a UK game now, instead of sitting on the court, we're up on the first level of the upper deck. We're shooting that. Then we have to wait for 30 minutes before we can go down to the court to do stand-ups. And in between that time, you're getting on a Zoom for Coach Calipari and the players doing their post-game press conferences. So that's so much different. Once you get when you come in during the day, I got to go back. You're writing, you're editing, you'll do your sportscast, and then you do get a little bit of a break. Sometimes you can go home, have dinner. Sometimes you're going to shoot a game, especially basketball season. They're every night. And then, you come back and you do it again at 11. And so, that's how that typical day is for me. Mine's changed a little bit since we got BB in tonight. So I'm coming in a little bit earlier, sometimes doing interviews with coaches and players over Zoom. And then we have our show BB in tonight that we record at 2:30, actually airs at 7:30. And then that's when I start working on my show for 5 and 6. And then I'm actually able to go home unless I'm going to help out shooting some basketball games. So I do have the 11 o'clock off occasionally now. Sometimes I do have to work occasionally as well.
Yeah, how times have changed. Obviously, it's the COVID-19 season has had certainly has had its impact on the way we operate, and it's crazy to think that that's how you guys have to operate, doing Zoom interviews, doing stuff literally just like this, whether it be with Coach Cal or the players, stuff like that. Along those lines, talk about how someone should conduct themselves when covering someone as a prestigious, program like UK, or not even like any program, how to, conduct yourself around, these household programs and names, and really just, to do your job with a level of excellence without being kind of like a fanboy, for lack of better words, because sometimes you're around people who I don't want to say idolize, but maybe look up to, might be a role model where, if you're a fan of UK, you certainly have to draw the line somewhere when it comes to covering him. So give us an idea of what that's like, that line to walk when it comes to, providing coverage to a UK or someone that, like I said, that you might look at as a fan, but you have to separate yourself from.
Yeah. So, growing up in Richmond, just 20 minutes away from here, I grew up a UK fan. And so I probably fanboy more over the older guys like the Jack Goose Gibbons and Kyle Macy's and guys like that than I do the newer generation. But that being said, I think it helped me go into Louisville, because when I went there, having grown up a UK fan, I'm now covering Louisville. And so it's kind of like not the fanboy thing, but it's like, I hope they do bad tonight. And so at first that was kind of the case. I was in my mind. I wasn't like showing that, verbally or even physically, but I was thinking in my mind, all right, maybe they'll lose tonight. Then you get to know the kids and things become different. And I think that's where once you kind of get into the business, it becomes a different thing. You're realizing you're covering a story. We want great stories. And so once I got to know the loyal kids, well, okay, I was pulling for them because I know them now and I realize what kind of kids there are. Not all UK, U of L, IU guys were great. Some were tough to deal with. Some were really cool to know. But yeah, I don't think, especially at my age, I don't fanboy as much. I want to see them do well because it makes it fun for me to cover them. And it also can take me places because, you get to go to bowl games and go to, Charlotte and Orlando and things like that. You get to go to NCAA tournaments, which have taken me all over the United States, which is really cool. So you pull for them, but I've always felt that, even having BBN tonight, I feel like I still need to be somewhat objective, more so than, maybe BBN tonight gives me a little bit more of a chance to say, all right, let's go Cats. But when I'm in the news realm of it, it's more, all right, here's what happened last night. And I'm just trying to let the players or the coaches kind of tell their side of things. And I'm just giving you more of the stats or the, here's the details, more than being a fan kind of thing.
Yeah, I love how you use the word objective. That's so critical, and I don't want to say rare in this industry. More so at the network level, rare than it is at the local level. I think there's more objective journalists, and that might just be my own 2 cents. But objective is incredibly important, and I think I can give you some credibility. But
Yeah.
also, I
Hey,
love how you
the
said,
funny thing with that is when I was in Louisville one time, a guy sent us an email or I got something, and he said, "Oh, that Keith Farmer, he's just a Louisville fan." I was like, "I'm doing my job." If you
yeah,
think I'm a fan of one or the other, because I didn't say I was a fan of one or the other.
yeah, that's proof that you did your job in an
Yeah,
objective manner. If they thought you were a Louisville fan,
yeah,
but I think this just goes to show that you said you got close to the players, and when you get close to them, you want to tell their story, you root for them, and so it's a natural a natural tendency to pull towards it because if anyone outside of Kentucky doesn't realize the rivalry between Kentucky and Louisville, it's like any rivalry, Duke, North Carolina, or 49ers, Cowboys, that's the type of rivalry that is. So for Keith to be a Louisville fan, that's a pretty big statement. And like I said, a testament to that you were clearly unbiased. So good for you, Keith.
hey,
Let's end I think we'll see where this goes. Let's end with something fun here. And I always like to ask people what their most embarrassing TV moment or moments are. And obviously you've been in long enough now that you've got at least one or two that hopefully you can share with us that come to mind. Anything that comes to mind that you think back on and think, wow, that was embarrassing. I can't believe I did that. Or, I did this and this is what I learned from that. Anything that come to mind.
yeah. There was a couple, and it was mainly when I really honestly, maybe I've as I've gotten into it more, I've gotten at least a little better, and haven't had something totally embarrassing happen. So the two that I think of when I was at YMT, my first stop, we didn't do many live shots, and I was doing one for a high school football playoff game, and it was in Danville. And I'm standing there, and I'm like, all right, I don't hear anybody now. I couldn't hear anybody in my ear. I'd been talking to somebody, and they're like, well, you're coming up pretty soon. And I'm like, well, I don't hear anybody. I don't hear anybody. And the guy told me, just turn around. So I turned around and showed him my back, and I thought, well, they won't take me if I'm got my back to them. They did. Yeah, they took it, and I didn't know it because I still wasn't hearing anybody, and they were probably waiting on me to turn around and start talking. And so I learned very quickly you're supposed to just step out of camera and and don't just stand there. And then another time, before I kind of learned some ad lib skills, I was sitting on the set, and we were talking about something or had lost something had happened. Maybe a tape didn't run or something, and a story. And I said, all right, we'll be right back with a UK Tennessee football VOSOT. And everybody at home sitting there going, what's a VOSOT? Well, that's a VO sound on tape, and or a VO bite, as some people call it. And so, everybody at home sitting there wondering what the heck. And as soon as I said it, we went to break, and I'm like, what did I just say? I mean, it just made no sense.
Right. That's
but
good.
Yeah, other than that, I can't think of anything that's been, too terribly bad, that has happened, luckily.
And I love everything that you shared. You learned from it and you shared with our audience, because part of which I asked that question so people can say, oh, okay, they messed up and this is how they handled it. So maybe I won't do that. So for example, if there's a live shot and you don't know if you're on, get off the camera. Don't turn your back and turn to the side or just stay. So that's a good tip. Honestly, I'd never even heard that one. So that's a good little tip there.
And I still have a job, so.
And obviously don't use TV jargon. I mean, we got a VOSOT coming right up, so that was lessons learned. Yeah, more tragic things have happened. Keith, anything that you want to leave us with? Like I said, I know we've covered a lot, and I appreciate everything that you shared, and we could easily talk for another hour or so, but I want to respect your time. But is there anything else that you want to leave us with before we call it a wrap?
Look, this is a fabulous job that could take you a lot of cool places, have you meet a lot of cool people. The couple of ones I've been around, a lot of people will ask you, who are the most famous people you've interviewed? Well, I mean, I've interviewed a lot of people that have ended up being famous here at Kentucky, with Anthony Davis's and all that. I was around Muhammad Ali once, and I was, floored. I was like supposed to be shooting, because this is when I was shooting news here. And I was supposed to be shooting as he came in, and I was like just watching him, and he starts doing his magic tricks, and all of a sudden I was like, oh, I'm not shooting. I was like, I got to start shooting. So, that was really cool. Jack Nicklaus, I've been around, I guess, growing up watching him. That was really cool when he came into Valhalla one time. So it can give you a chance to meet some really cool people, be around some really cool people, go some really neat places and travel. That being said, it's a hard job. Don't be afraid to knock on some doors, send some emails. I'm more laid back, and maybe that's why I haven't pushed it. When I got out, I wanted to climb the ladder of the markets and go as high as I could go. If I could make it to New York or LA, great. Things change when you have families. All of a sudden, you kind of become happy with where you are. You find a place that you like a Louisville and Lexington, and you want to stick around the area, and or may find another city that you just fall in love with. So for me, again, it's hard. It's one of those jobs that can be very difficult, can be demanding. You can have different schedules, day, night, weekends, may not pay very well, but if you keep at it and, like I said, keep your eye on the prize, things can turn out for you.
Yeah. And that's one of the big gripes, if you will, the pay. But you think about the things that you've covered, from front row, the places that you've been, all the stuff that you just said, you cannot put a price tag on. People that, would kill to be in the position that you get to be in almost on a daily basis. And people, well, not right now, rubbing shoulders with certain individuals, but you get to go places and cover things, not for free, but you get paid to do it. So certainly some great times had, I know, for me and you as well, and anyone that pursues this career. So Keith, I appreciate everything you shared with us, especially your time and your knowledge. That's not something I take for granted. So I appreciate you doing this right here today.
No problem. I always love to help out the next generation coming up, as long as they don't take my job for a couple more years.
And thank you for checking out this channel. If you found this content beneficial, I'd appreciate it if you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and share it with someone you think might find it beneficial as well, because this channel was simply started and created to serve you, to help others grow, to learn how other successful TV journalists do or did it. So take what serves you so you can get better faster and reach your next level.